This is NEWSFASH, the podcast where fashion and news meet for your weekly dose of insider insights. I'm your host, fashion journalist Mosha Lundström Halbert, and together we're going to stay up to date and open to learn about fashion from a variety of perspectives. And welcome back to another episode of NEWSFASH Live, recorded right here on TikTok, where I will be taking all of your fashion, style, industry, careers, and business questions. And then we will also be sharing this as a podcast and also on YouTube. So I've been doing this for a little bit now, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been getting so many great questions. And this week in particular, I'm really going to be leaning hard on all of your questions. So please start asking them below, because it actually was a bit of a slow news week in the world of fashion. Of course, I still have a laundry list of topics that I want to go over and intersperse between your questions. Everything from the case of a couple who sold a hell of a lot of Lululemon, wait till you hear about this, to some sales figures at one of the biggest mall brands. It's a 3-letter word, if you can take any guesses of who it might be, to some fun or maybe not so fun, some questionable fashion collabs, and also a new report about what has emerged as the most expensive retail district in the world. So I hope as many of you as possible can join me for this, and we can start to dive into your questions. But first off, I did want to not bury the lead and let you know about this Black Friday madness, because Black Friday has already pretty much begun. I think Black Friday these days is pretty much most of the month of November, especially because American Thanksgiving is falling almost like a week later this year. It's making it a lot more difficult for retailers and brands to hit those fourth quarter goals with less time. But one couple has taken things into their own hands and was recently arrested this week in Minnesota for stealing $500,000 worth of Lululemon merchandise. Now, I read into this a bit further. There were various local news reports, and basically the way that they were operating this scheme was that they would go in there and then the wife would buy some lower priced items at the point of purchase, which are those items that you buy when you're waiting in line to cash out. Although we don't pay for pretty much anything with cash anymore now, do we? So even saying cash out to check out, right? And while that was going on, her husband would create a little bit of distraction. Her husband would start stealing things, and then he would remove the security tag and then reattach it to one of the items that she had bought. And then when they would leave, her item would go off, and then the employees would check and see if she'd actually bought it, and then they would remove it. They would probably think to themselves, I thought I removed that. Am I going crazy? At which point he would have discarded of the security tag and then keep going. And then they would go back to the East Coast from various areas of the US. They were arrested in Minnesota, I believe, and sell and return these items back to Lululemon. So it reminds me a lot of return fraud, although this is slightly different, which is where people will sometimes purchase fraudulent items and then return them to major retailers or the brands themselves as the real McCoy and then get the full value of them back. But I just think it's pretty remarkable that this couple had managed to return $500,000 worth of product, which Lululemon valued at $1 million of losses for them because of having to write off those products as missing and then take them back as returns. A lot of times when you return things, brands are not able, especially from mass retailers like Lululemon, brands are not able to just put them back on the shop floor and sell them. It can have to do with what their current merchandise assortment is. Maybe that has already come and gone. There's many different factors, but What do you make of that? I mean, it's quite a Bonnie and Clyde gone Lululemon, right? It's Bonnie and Clyde in stretch pants. That's what it is. So thanks to all of you that have joined so far. Oh my gosh, somebody just said KD, MD about the 500,000 figure. So they got 3 outfits. Yeah, I think these days you're looking at about $300 at least for a total Lululemon look, right? Their prices have certainly continued to be more at the top of the market when it comes to athleisure and workout wear, whatever we're calling it these days. Exercise clothes. I feel like that's what I still say. I don't know if anyone says exercise clothes. What do you call Lululemon type clothing and those adjacent brands? Do you call it workout gear? Do you call it, I feel like in the UK, they call it like keep fit clothes, maybe? They call in the UK working out keep fit. They'll say like, oh, I'm going to the keep fit, which means I'm going to the gym or I'm going to work out. That was an interesting use of conjugation for me and took me a little while to realize that going to the keep fit was like an actual place. But anyways, let me know what you think of that story. Also, let me know. I'm really interested because I'm trying to get a better sense of the NEWSFASH demographics. I'm not going to say community because I feel like everyone refers to people these days as their community. And it's become a bit cringe and devoid of all meaning. But where are you from? Where are you listening in, tuning in, joining us from right now? Let me know. I'm here in LA. And I'd love to know where you are. And I will start to look at some questions now and see what everyone is wanting to talk about. Oh, back to Lululemon. Someone said activewear. Yes, I think that's a good all-encompassing. It's like basically comfortable clothing meant for some form of movement. Term for it, activewear. I don't know why I didn't think of that. We've got Miami, we've got Los Angeles, we've got Philly, we've got Atlanta. Ooh, we've got some people from Ireland, Dublin. You know I have a soft spot for Ireland and Dublin. That's where my sister lives. And I visit there many times a year because I just love it. It's so charming. I feel like Irish designers and people in general, Irish like creatives are really having a moment too when it comes to music, film, television, fashion. One of my favorite new talents right now to emerge is an Irish designer called Michael Stewart, who has a brand called Standing Ground. Whoops. Okay. Houston, Texas, Dallas, Venus. Okay. All are welcome here on NEWSFASH. Iowa, Toronto. Yay, that's my hometown. Okay, I'll give people a little bit more time to think of your fashion questions of the week as I get into our next story, which is, I don't know if you've noticed via your local high street shopping center or maybe through e-commerce or social media these days, but Gap is in major turnaround mode. They have a relatively new CEO, Richard from Mattel. The last big project that he worked on was like brokering the deal for the Barbie film, which obviously was a big win for Mattel in terms of like cultural relevance of the Barbie brand. But he now runs, Richard Dixon, I think it is, or Richard Dickinson. He now runs Gap Inc. Now, Gap Inc. is the umbrella brand of which Gap is not even the biggest part of. Lululemon. Old Navy is the biggest brand in the Gap Inc. portfolio, which also includes Banana Republic and Gap, of course, and Athleta, which is a activewear brand, as we're now going to call it because of all the terms I threw out there. I think that's probably the most fitting one these days. But Gap has really been struggling for a while, trying to reorient and reposition itself in the market. The whole Kanye West debacle certainly didn't help, and having to sever ties with him like mid-deal when they had heavily invested in that initiative and product in stores. Although I don't know how much you can invest in what that was, which was, do you remember those massive garbage bags that they put in the middle of Gap stores full of like Kanye's Yeezyfied merch in the center. Anyways, I'm glad that's gone. I think there's much brighter days for Gap ahead, and they've been clearly trying with campaigns including Troye Sivan for like the key kind of back to school fall moment in September. And then also they have like a new holiday campaign where there's a bunch of singers. So I got reported that their Q3 profits are actually up, and they've gained both from the top and bottom line. So that means their sales are up and their spending is down. Very, very good. Very hard to do these days, but I'm sure that Gap really needed to cut some of the fat. It's a very big company. They also have Zach Posen in there now as like the overall creative director across all brands. But he's specifically focused on like the product at Old Navy as well. So I think it takes quite a long time to like steer and turn around such a gargantuan enterprise as Gap, but it seems to be working. I recently bought a pair of jeans. I really don't wear jeans very often from the Gap in like a dark, dark, dark brown. This like manure color, for lack of a better word, that I've been wearing a lot of lately. You can see a recent TikTok I posted of a look I wore to a day of show jumping that was a vintage Prada and like a Carvan skirt that I had that was a similar color. This kind of like taupey brown, like a cool bitter brown, not a warm chocolate as much. Anyways, for what it's worth, I got Gap jeans recently, and I can't remember the last time I got something at Gap. So clearly, I think it was the Troye Sivan campaign actually that got me. I saw that they were offering this color in denim, and I thought, that looks nice. And I like how it mixes with black. Glenn said, Gap just doesn't feel like a youthful brand. I think they would agree that that is part of the problem, and that when Gap has been at its best, they've really captured youth culture. And then Banana Republic is the brand that's a bit more like staid and bougie for when you're a little bit older and more affluent too, because it is a slightly higher price point. And I think that's why they wanted to work with Troye Sivan as well. And I think are looking to bring in a roster of younger talent. I think that would make sense. Yes, you are all noticing the bang touch up is just a little tick that I have. Mel G said, can you tell us where your earrings are from? Yes, these are Maria Black, Danish jewelry designer, and they sell earrings individually. So I got one gold and one silver because I love mixing metals. And all of the brands that I tend to shop the most, and most of the things that you will currently see on me and on rotation, both on TikTok, Instagram, and through my videos, I have decided, because I really I'm just kind of like the anti-influencer. Like I feel like I could be an influencer if I really wanted to, but I just don't. It just, nothing bugs me more than when somebody asks me for a link, and I so I begrudgingly started something called Shop My, and you can check this link in my TikTok or my Instagram, where I am just linking everything there under different categories that I like and have, so that you can find it all in one place. And I don't have to send people individual links anymore. Not that I did, but I felt sometimes badly that I didn't. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. Like I was always the kid in school that prided myself on having things that not everyone else had. So then this idea of trying to like influence other people or persuade them to get the exact thing that I have just never felt organic or authentic to who I am. But I also recognize that it is affiliate links are a really good business model for creators like myself, and it's a service, so I'm providing it now. And you should be able to find like most things, like this Wolford bodysuit that I'm wearing right now, this Comme des Garçons blazer. I don't know if I've added these glasses yet. Duh, I should add those. The earrings, they're all in my Shop My, plus my like skincare and beauty products. So check that out. Glenn said, would a diffusion line help Gap reach a younger demographic? No, I don't think so. I think Gap can very much be uh, um, like a Levi's, in that Levi's doesn't necessarily appeal to like one generation. It's just exists in this pantheon of like American classics. You might say the same of Ralph Lauren as well. There's a number of brands like this, right? Nike, although they're struggling right now too. What would be another example? I would say Timberland. I'm thinking of just American brands right now that just seem to really appeal across a wide generation and are not pegged to a specific age or demographic. And I think that that is probably what Gap is trying to do. But at the same time, you never want to like age up with your customers. You always want to be still attracting, like, older people that have discovered you will continue to be loyal. I think brand loyalty continues with more consistency as we get older and we experience decision fatigue, and we just know ourselves. We know what we like, we know what fits us, and we don't feel the need to shop around as much. I think what's really important for a brand like Gap is to make sure that they are still appealing and resonating with younger generations. So that's not even Gen Z too, that's Gen A. Like, I remember when I first started really shopping at the Gap and found the Gap to just be the bee's knees was when I was like 9, 10, 11, which would be around the age group that people who are considered Gen A are today, right? So I think it's really important that Gap attracts that customer as well. In order to do that these days, they do need like a multi-pronged marketing strategy that really taps into youth culture and TikTok, frankly. Kate said there's a niche for vintage Gap and it's coming full circle and back to basics, in my opinion. I agree, because I think Gap was and is that niche of like decent quality. Same with Levi's. It's good quality. It's durable. And it's a bit more expensive than the super fast fashion or almost like direct fashion brands. I heard someone refer to Shein today as a fashion on demand brand, like these brands that are so cheap, quality and price point, and you kind of know what you're going to get and the expectations aren't that high when it comes to quality. I think Gap and Levi's exist in that bracket where people assume that their quality, they're willing to pay a little bit more because the quality and the longevity of the styles is presumed to have a bit more depth to it and something behind it, and there's more like thought behind it, and it's been made in a slightly better way. Shelly said, ooh, are you talking about Banana Republic's revamp? Yes, Banana Republic is also part of Gap Inc.'s whole revamp strategy, although they're one of, actually, I think Banana Republic and Athleta is probably the smallest, but Banana Republic is probably the smallest brand in the portfolio. And I think they are, when I heard an interview with Zach Posen recently, he spoke about how they're trying to focus, like return to their roots as a brand that appealed to people who were very well traveled and like explorers and were going on, safari. I noticed they shot recent campaigns in Iceland and like these far-flung destinations, Patagonia. I think there was one too. And I think that's quite niche. I think from a creative perspective, it makes sense. But I do think they probably need to figure out who they are in conjunction with like a J. Crew. Like, what is their point of differentiation? J. Crew certainly seems like it's a bit more playful, maybe. And I think J. Crew probably has a more like stronger and established menswear business as well. But that would be an interesting story for me to look at reporting on for NEWSFASH, though, like comparing and contrasting J. Crew and Banana Republic, like really looking into that and seeing which business is bigger and kind of a state of the union there. That's giving me something to think about. Thomas says, thanks for being such an inspo. What are your thoughts on Gap lately? Well, Thomas, thank you so much for joining. I've just been speaking a lot about Gap recently, and I feel like I need to start to move on to the next topic. But the good thing is that with these lives, everything is recorded. So if you missed anything, you will be able to watch tune in, listen. It'll meet you wherever you are afterwards when I upload this on all platforms, all podcasting platforms, and also on YouTube. But I'm so grateful that everyone that joins these and asks great questions. Glenn said you should check out the designs from Irish Independent Fashion Week. Yes, I should. I will continue to. Maybe I can ask my sister to report back on that for me a little bit too, and dig in on who are the brands that I should really know about. Hey, somebody said, sounds like they're trying to be like Tod's or something. Do you mean Banana Republic? I'm having, like, confession, I'm having a little bit of a Tod's moment myself. I recently got 2 pairs of Tod's from the Real that were like brand new, never worn. Because I'm just like, where did Tod's go? Both in the market and like they used to make really good, just pared back, simple, versatile, very comfortable loafers. And I got 2 really nice pairs. I shared one of them in a recent TikTok. You can check that out as well. But I don't know. I think that it's interesting to see. Actually, I do know. It's interesting to see how these preppy shoes are having a moment right now, like be it the Mary Jane, very 1950s preppy, right? The boat shoe, or also like the driving mock. These all feel like they're part of the same lexicon when it comes to very clean-cut, preppy, refined footwear that feels like a lot of brands are working on their own interpretations of this right now, like Bally, Miu Miu. They've really gone all in on this idea of the boat shoe. What do you guys think about boat shoes? I like the look of a boat shoe as a shoe. I don't like the way it looks on me. Don't love the way it looks on the leg. I'm more of a Mary Jane and a driving mock girl, but not your typical driving mocks. And I prefer driving mocks on women than I do men. Maybe that's my first hot take of the episode. Oh, goody. I wasn't sure I'd have any this week. Driving mocks on men are a bit of a ick, aren't they? It gives off the vibe that you don't work very hard. You've inherited wealth and you're kind of lazy about the whole thing. And you're maybe in your 20s or you're maybe in your 30s, but you dress and look like you could be in your 50s. Do you know what I mean? You know that type of guy? He wears driving mocks. Also, I don't know if this is hot take number 2 now, or if we can count this with hot take number 1. Those Loro Piana summer walk shoes, they're called, like those loafers with the white sole. No cool individual with like real sense of swag. Nobody that I'd ever really want to like hang out with, have drinks with, shoot the shit with, would ever wear those shoes. There is something so repugnant. And again, like a third generation, multiple stints in rehab, no value add, hanger on, deadbeat about those shoes is kind of how I feel. I know that many people have a soft spot for Loro Piana. I am not one of those people. I think that Loro Piana and the Row these days exist in this world where their customers seem to think that the only way to wear these brands is head to toe, and in which case they are devoid of any iota of personal style. And it really is like this performative wealth signaling minus any eccentricity or quirk or personal style. And it kind of drives me nuts, as you can tell. Okay, let me see. I'm going to scroll down now and see if any of you agree or if that was just like a kind of rancid rant. Maybe that's what I should coin these. Rancid rant. Somebody said, I thought you were Anne Hathaway. That's interesting. Do you know that I once did a cameo in a movie with Anne Hathaway? Let's see if you can guess what film. Ray Ramirez says, yes, driving mocks are for people who don't try. Yeah, But I do think with the right like level of subversion, they can be quite chic. Like there's some Todds that I like that are done in a patent. The pair that I ended up buying has like multiple straps up the ankle, so they're a bit different. Or I've seen them in like a cowhide print, something that is a twist on the classic, and then I think it can work. I love that explanation. Funny. Okay, I'm glad that I didn't offend all of you. Nevin said, Miu Miu boat shoes made me die laughing. It's somewhat ironic to me. Yeah, Miu Miu's really gone in this preppy polo direction. And I noticed that, like, if you are any kind of these days on Instagram, you got to just be decked out in Miu Miu, right? You need those striped rugby shirts and polos, layered preferably, and you need your boat shoes and you need your bag with all those ridiculous bag charms. That's, oh my gosh. Here we go again. This might be rant number 3. The Jane Birkin-ifying of the bags. Like, go back and actually look at how Jane Birkin did that. She would never put those god-awful, ticky-tacky, try-hard, devoid of any meaning stuffed animals on her Birkin bags. So just because you have an Hermes bag does not mean you have fashion sense. And just because you've added a bunch of charms to it doesn't mean you are charming. Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of, I think when you're doing that kind of eclectic mix on any bag or item in your wardrobe, it has to happen a little bit more organically and not like you went to the mall and bought a bunch of cheap shit and then stuck it on a bag to try and manufacture some semblance of irreverence. Okay. Rodrigo said, we're not talking about that right now, but have you seen anything from São Paulo Fashion Week? Thoughts? I want to do a report on that tomorrow because I know that we're in the throes of São Paulo Fashion Week right now and I need to get caught up on it. But please, Rodrigo, I know that you are based in São Paulo, I think it is. Let me know the designers that you think I should be checking out and that are the most exciting these days. And I will. Okay. Nevin says, as someone that grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, I wore boat shoes for years and I'm confused. Yeah, there's certain like areas that I certainly associate boat shoes with, like Newport, like Nantucket. Yes, definitely South Carolina, Charleston. I picture like a navy boat shoe with like the white top stitching being particularly apropos there. I haven't seen them a lot in LA, to be honest. I've seen them more on TikTok than I have in IRL. Nicholas said, even like a Stubbs and Wooten. That is another preppy shoe staple. I think I do need to do a bigger report on like preppy shoe terminology. I would call that a smoking slipper, or I've heard it called a smoking shoe. They're often done in velvet, and Stubbs and Wooten is one of the originators of that kind of style. And I think, again, on the right person and worn with irreverence, they can work. I think they've definitely taken a bit of a cooling off moment though, because that style of shoe was quite big in the 2010s. I don't know. I still have a few in my wardrobe from back then that I really like. There was a brand called Chatel, a French brand that I used to wear a lot of their kind of velvet smoking slippers. And I wear them when I'm hosting, having people over. I think it's like a chic hostess shoe, but I'm not necessarily gravitating to them when I want to go out and about to really complete a look, if that makes sense. I missed about the driving shoes. Oh, I was just going on a rant, Shira, and don't worry, you'll be able to listen to this whole darn show later and hear my thoughts. I'm getting some people saying never more a true statement. Nevin is saying that the smoking slipper is like the men's staple shoe for the holidays. Yeah. I don't know. I just think there's a word that my husband uses a lot and they say in the UK called poncy. Kind of a slang. Like I just find that the smoking slipper on a guy all dressed up can feel a little poncy and not the most fresh these days. What about a boot? Suited and booted. I think that's more chic looking without being so gosh darn literal. But Nevin says, I think smoking slippers are still super chic and still a staple in men's wardrobes, especially in the RL way. Well, this is my point, Nevin. I think worn head to toe in that literal RL way, it's too on the nose. Taking these styles, like why the Miu Miu boat shoe arguably works, is because they've done it in an irreverent Miu Miu Prada-fied way, right? It's not worn with like rolled up khaki pants and like a cardigan tied around the shoulders. You need to mix and clash these elements in order for them to like be injected with the right element of that sprezzatura that we spoke about in the last episode, that Italian concept of mixing something sportif with something elegant and making it feel effortless and elegantly casual. Said, I think the charms can be too much with bags if you don't like eclectic and thoughtful things. Yeah, somebody else said, I feel like the bag charms work only when it makes sense or aligns with the color palette. It's a curation. I just think it's become a trend. It was meant to be like a personal styling quirk, and it's become a bastardization sort of itself. Brooke made a really good point. She said overconsumption being marketed / manufactured as individuality really bothers me, a la bag charms. I agree. There's something about it that feels, that's a great word, manufactured and marketed versus authentic and organic and even charming, which is ironic because we're talking about bag charms. Shira says, I burst out laughing with Ponzi. Yeah, Ponzi is a great word. I encourage you all to use it. It's just like if something is a little bit annoying, irksome, gives you the ick, trying too hard, it's Ponzi. It's putting on airs. It's not cool. It's not relevant. It's just a little, it's Ponzi, you know? Devin said, I agree. It's like posh. Yeah, posh is another really interesting one because I feel like in North America, we think that calling someone or something posh is a compliment. I think this has to do with a few things. It sounds like it should be a compliment. Two, the posh spice of it all. We thought that was like a good thing. They were calling her posh spice. That meant that she, was fancy and came from a nice background. And these are traits that one aspires to. But in the UK, because I do split my time now, so I sort of learn these little idiosyncrasies. Calling someone posh is actually a bit of a put down. It's like, oh, they're so posh. If you are posh, you want to try to like not draw attention to the fact, because you don't want people to remark upon it. And people who are called posh or who come off posh are viewed by society oftentimes negatively and as a bit repugnant and eye-rolly, and that's why that whole moment went viral in the Beckham doc when Victoria said that she grew up she's very working class and came from working class background, because David knew that, that was not her accurate background. And also, this is posh spice speaking here, and that the British people in public would take the piss with her characterizing herself so inaccurately. Oh, another good British expression that I love is that I used to always get wrong was can't be asked. I used to think it was can't be asked. Like, oh, I can't be bothered, but it's like, it kind of is can't be bothered. But if somebody can't be asked, it's like, oh, I just can't even bother with you and all of your ridiculousness, can't be asked. So that's another one that that you can incorporate into your lingo if you want to sound a bit more, I don't know, Ponzi, transcontinental, posh. No, saying you can't be asked isn't exactly posh. It depends on the accent you use. Curious what, okay, Kurt, where did your question go? I'm getting too many questions all at once here. Curious what board of boat shoes you sit on. Yeah, I know. I have a lot of strong opinions about the boat shoe. And no, I do not have a vested interest. I am not on the board of Sebago nor Sperry. My dad, A0506 says, I'm still obsessed with Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. I'm still obsessed with Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. She meant it so much. She said it twice. I agree. She is just in my brain these days. I've been listening on audiobooks to an biography of her and JFK and Jr. And I think that that's like seeped into my brain because I listen to it at night before bed. And all I can think about is, and I ask myself, there's certain people that stay top of mind. I find when I'm doing my makeup, when I'm doing my hair, when I'm cooking, sometimes when I'm even exercising, that are kind of like my role models in that moment, and it can shift, or my mentors. And right now when I'm getting dressed, I think like, what would Caroline Bessette Kennedy do? Or would she approve of this? And then, I have like Alison Roman in my head when I'm cooking, and I'm like, would Alison Roman fuck with this dish? Would she add shallots here? Would she add a tin of anchovies? With makeup artists, I often think of like Katie Jane Hughes. She has a lot of great techniques and she's big on TikTok. You can check her out. I learn a lot from her and her approach. And then like when I'm exercising, I don't know, I'll think of like Tracy Anderson because I do her workouts online, and like her form will just inspire me. And it's nice to have people. Who do you think of when you're getting dressed or when you're doing your hair and makeup or cooking that sort of inspire you, are kind of the voice in your head mentoring you along the way? This is a good question from Gemma. She said, I really need a cute alternative to a croc that isn't ugly. Please advise. I didn't mind the Simone Rocha croc collab. Do you know what I actually really like though? And I think I'm going to get for myself in time for the holidays, that's kind of croc adjacent. There is a Birkenstock, as they say in Germany where they're from, called the Reykjavik, which of course I was naturally drawn to because I'm part Icelandic. And it is like the Boston clog shape, but it has a slingback strap. And then the front of it is kind of coated in a rubber galosh. So it's a bit more versatile in the weather. And I don't know, there's something about it. Like I love a shoe that has a cap toe. Do you want to know what shoes I'm wearing right now, actually, considering that I've gone on and on about shoes? Let's see if my own shoes live up to all the shoe shit talk that I've been doing in this live. And if I'm one to talk, let's see if I walk the talk. I am wearing a Chanel loafer. What do you think? Are you going to drag me for these, or do we like these? It's got quite a nice chunky heel, which I like, and the quilting. And I like this hardware because it almost looks vintage. It doesn't look so brand new, and the CC isn't so obvious. But yes, this is really comfortable. My pants were a little bit long, and I needed a style that would give me like a little bit of lift, but I didn't feel like wearing a full-blown heel. They're a bit heavy, would be one of my only criticisms of these. And the toe, like I wish Chanel would make a slightly more elongated round toe. I find this toe like a little bit stubby, but yeah, it's a pretty good shoe. Now I have to scroll down and think and see what you guys think of this. See if you drag my shoes or if you think they're okay. Devin said, I love the Chanels. I have a pair from Prada that's similar and I love it. Yeah, I think that this is a good wardrobe staple, a version of this, like a heeled loafer. It's not a high heel, but it's a bit chunkier when you need to balance that proportion. I don't know. I don't wear them as much as I should. Oh, Myth says gag good shoe. Yeah, see, this is why I feel like I can speak on these things, because I actually take shoes very, very seriously. It's like the first thing I notice about people too. I glean a lot of information about people based upon their footwear. And I love recommending shoes to people too. Jason says, what do you think of Manolo Blahnik? Not as relevant as the early OOs. I would disagree. I think Manolo is never irrelevant. I think Manolo exists outside of fashion trend and has such loyal customers. And I think even the customers who are more fashion and trend focused, if you shop the market, you will come back around to a Manolo BB pump just really being one of the gold standards of pumps, and they have a number of these styles. I forget the name of the one that has like the buckle up front, but that also too, like other brands do their version of it seasonally, but the Manolo is really the final word in the kind of mule heel, I would say. I actually wrote a comment on somebody else's video recently that ended up getting a lot of traction. She was talking about resoling. This whole episode is turning into shoes. That's okay. I can talk about shoes all day long, so it's fine. She was talking about resoling a pair of Louboutins that she had worn outside in the rain, and they got extremely damaged, and she was really surprised that they weren't more durable. And it reminded me of this antidote. I went once for tea with Mr. Manolo Blahnik himself. Was friends with a former boss of mine, and I'd interviewed him a few times when I was at WWD's Footwear News. And before that, when I was at Flair magazine too, I actually did a big profile on him, and he would call me Mrs. Lundström, and he's such a fabulous character. He truly is a character and has incredible stories and bon mots to share. And it was snowing the day we met him at, I think it was the Plaza Hotel in New York, or maybe it was the Carlisle. And I had a pair of Manolos at my desk that I had not worn to work that day because it was snowing, that I changed into to go meet Mr. Blahnik, of course. And when I got there, he looked at my shoes and he goes, "My dear, why are you wearing these today?" And I was like, "Oh, I wanted to wear them to show you I love these shoes so much." And he goes, "Thank you, I appreciate it, but you should really not wear my shoes outside." And I was like, "Oh yeah, because the weather?" And he's like, "Just on the streets." And I was like, "You don't think I should wear your shoes on the streets?" He's like, "I wouldn't recommend it." Like, I'm paraphrasing the conversation, but I just loved that Mr. Blahnik himself basically was deterring me from wearing his shoes outside. Like, they really are, curb to lobby footwear, and you're not meant to take more than like 50 steps on any kind of exterior surface like asphalt or concrete, or God forbid, snow or sleet or rain in a Manolo Blahnik. And they're suede bottoms, right? Nor a Louboutin, which are almost lacquered in that red paint. Oh, somebody said, I'm also wearing my Fry engineer boots again. Yes, the Fry kind of moto boot is having a comeback again, fueled by Miu Miu. Miu Miu is really good for the footwear industry because whatever shoe they put forth and put the literal Miu Miu stamp on or label on or embossing on, brands that already make that shoe and are known for it, be it Sperry's, be it Timberland, be it Fry, like these kind of stalwart shoe brands can have a pop off moment with some of those signature styles again at the hands of the all powerful Mucha Prada. Somebody says, where do you like to buy your gold from? Ooh, do you mean like stocks in gold, bars of gold, or gold to wear, gold jewelry? I mean, a lot of my jewelry is custom and family jewelry. And so it all depends. I don't have like one requisite place that I go to. Although I will say I've learned a bit more about gold in recent years. And my favorite type of gold for me is 14 karat. That's what my signet ring is that I often get questions about. This is my wedding ring. Signet rings as wedding rings are like an old English tradition. Like King Charles, his wedding ring is a signet ring. And that's what my husband and I did. And 14 karat gold, you will notice if you look up closely, like this is 14 karat and this is 18 karat gold, this ring. First of all, 14 karat gold is not as soft as 18 karat gold. And 18 karat gold, I don't know if you can tell, it's a little bit more green of an undertone than 14 karat. I find 14 karat is just a little bit warmer on the skin, and so therefore I prefer it. And it's a nice mix of like durable, it's a better price point, and it doesn't irritate my skin. When I've gone lower than 14, which a lot of brands do now, like they'll do like 6 or 7 or 8 or even 4 karat gold. No, that ends up irritating my skin. I need 14 karat. That's my gold. Somebody else says, Alison Bornstein she's been on an episode of my podcast. If you go back, you can hear we had a really lovely chat together. I'm trying to shop my closet like she advises. Yep, that's always a good idea. I find that the best way for me to get inspired to shop my closet is to re-merchandise it. Like my favorite store, I did a video segment for a television show I used to do called City Line on this that you can search and find. It's on YouTube. But having a rolling rack, like a nice rolling rack, I have a decent one from Target with a like wood shoe shelf where I have a pull of my favorite like pieces and go-to outfits of the moment separate from my closet, which is organized by color and style. It really helps me shop my own closet and get dressed with more efficiency. Okay, I'm going up to these earlier questions now. Don't worry, I didn't miss them. Nevin said, my staple bag is an LL Bean boat tote because CBK. Yes, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy did love a boat tote, and you can never go wrong with a boat tote. I love that like sturdy, hefty, stiff canvas. I love it in outerwear as well, like Whip Work in Progress by Carhartt uses a similar material in some of their pieces. Again, I'm loving the boat shoe. I mean, I think it's comfortable and it's an alternative to like more classic loafer. And oftentimes the sole of it is like rubberized and has a bit better traction. So I get the appeal. People are bringing up the Menendez brothers show. Do they wear boat shoes in that? I didn't realize. I don't know if that helps or hurts the trend, to be honest. It says, are those bangs considered posh? Well, first of all, in the UK, they call this fringe. So you're getting your fringe trimmed. If you're getting your bangs trimmed or you're combing your fringe. They're not called bangs. So there you go. Another person, rolling rack from Uline is a must. Yeah, it can be like quite, it doesn't have to be a fancy rolling rack. And oftentimes these can cost like under $100, under $200. But I find it really helps to have that pull, have that edit that are pieces outside of your closet that are in heavy rotation that you're feeling most inspired by. Or sometimes you can take pieces from your closet that you've been struggling to style and just having them on the rolling rack next to some of your newest additions or favorite pieces or MVPs of the moment will help you put together more inspired looks. Ooh, Vintage Beauty says, I inherited a collection of extremely garish Versace skirt suits, late 80s and 90s. They sound like quite something. I have been very into the idea of a skirt suit recently, and there's a ton on the resale market. And my suggestion would be take those suckers to a tailor, because I think with the right hack job, you could actually make them feel quite modern. And maybe if you're wearing it with like a chunkier boot, it's feeling less like business lady and more like a great cocktail or going out or dinner look. And I'd probably pop on like a bodysuit underneath as well. And as opposed to like a collared shirt or anything else that felt too corporate or literal with a skirt suit. And you could probably get some really good wear out of those. Or you break up the pieces or you mix them. Maybe you mix your garish Versace suits with boat shoes. Like temper it and tone it down so that you're like, don't pair anything too literal together. And I think that's how I at least come up with combos that work in our like current times when I'm wearing things that are from the past or feel maybe a bit more intrinsically dated. Do you recommend a tailor in LA? Been searching. Thank you, says Vintage Beauty. I go to the Santa Anita Cleaners is their name. It's a family business and it's a husband and wife and they are really talented. I also love that they'll tell me no when something is ridiculous, one of my requests, and that I'm better off leaving well enough alone. And they're honest with me. I recently had them repair this like really kind of avant-garde Isamiake jumpsuit that I had that got a hole in the crotch, but it was knit and there's no Isamiake stores in LA. That brings me to my next story. Well, I give you time to chime in with more questions. I did a report this week on basically how the shopping scene in Los Angeles is really not all it's cracked up to be. And I think for people who have grown up seeing LA in the movies and on TV, certainly with films in the 90s like Clueless, and you have this impression that LA just has the most fantastic, glamorous assortment of shops. And I really don't find it does. In fact, we don't even have an Alaya here. There's one apparently opening at the South Coast Plaza. There's only a Miu Miu there too. Like a lot of the better shops are in Newport. Rodeo Drive is, it's fine, but I think the shopping these days is a lot better, obviously in New York and even Miami, and there's better taxes in Miami. But I did a report because it just came out that guess where the most expensive retail destination via rent is in the world these days? Guess, Juan. It's not a relatively small city, but if you've ever been on the Via Montepellione in this area that's called the Golden Triangle with Via della Spiga, and I forget the other via that makes up the triangle, it is incredibly exclusive. It's only super high-end designer stores. You're not getting any like of the fast fashion or H&M cost stores. They're nearby, but they're not in the Golden Triangle. It's all true luxury brands and jewelry brands and footwear brands. And they're the most expensive these days. It's more expensive to rent there. It's over $2,040 per square foot than Fifth Avenue. And coming in third is London's New Bond Street. And I think fourth might be Hong Kong. But I thought that that was really interesting. And it posed this whole question in this conversation we were having about like, what do you think are the best cities to shop in these days? I used to love shopping in London, but the VAT is just out of control there these days. It back. Like there's no tax return. I think one of the points of differentiation for Milan is that the tax office is just a few steps down from like Gucci. So you can shop and then you can go and get your tax refund done immediately. You don't have to like try to remember to get your act together and get to the airport early and have that done. And they'll give you like cash in hand immediately too if you want. And I think that that has made Milan really appeal to international shoppers too who are traveling. And I think this is part of the reason why there's the luxury slowdown in the Asian market, because the Asian consumers, like, things are so much more expensive in a lot of these Asian countries when it comes to luxury brands. They'd rather go to a European fashion capital that does have a tax return to do their shopping. Fave show for spring summer 25. Yes, the more I've let the season kind of sink in and marinate for me, the more I've realized how much I loved the Alaya show. I loved what was shown on the runway. I loved that it was at the Guggenheim. I loved the casting. I loved the styling. I loved how the collection was reflective of the undulating nature of the architecture of the Guggenheim. The whole thing was just bloody brilliant. So I think that that would have to take the cake for my favorite collection of the spring 25 season. And then, okay, Ali Endor says, what do you think of Taylor Swift's styling? I think that I'd like to get more into this, maybe in another episode, because I think we need to stop trying to make everyone super fashion forward or fashion savvy. I just posted a video about Charlie XCX, who I think is somebody who hasn't always been so fashion forward or fashion savvy or like relevant when it comes to a fashion perspective, but lately very much is. And it makes sense for her right now. It makes sense for her music. She's working very well with her stylist, Chris Horan, and I think she's positioning herself. She's currently the face of Acne Studios and H&M, but to get bigger and better campaigns, I posed with like one of the main luxury houses, and I wanted to know who you all thought that could be. I mean, I think Burberry could be quite irrelevant, like a Brit Brat moment, somebody in my comments suggested, which I thought was a great way of putting it. Miu Miu, perhaps, or even Balenciaga seems like it would make a lot of sense. Balenciaga is, for better or worse, quite brat. But I don't think Taylor Swift wants to, needs to, or will position herself in the present or near future as a true like fashion player. I just don't think that's her MO, and I don't think that we should force it. I'd rather see somebody be badly dressed but be themselves than be perfectly styled and flawless but have it be all a fallacy and not a true reflection of who they actually are or what they want to say or like how they want to express themselves. Does that make sense? Like, not everybody needs to be super fashion forward. Some people, it makes sense for her, like Lively, let's say, and even Gigi Hadid, I would say too. She does not really know how to dress herself very well, to have that be part of their personality. That's part of the charm, is that they're beautiful, they're successful, they're smart, and they put things together in a really weird way. And that's part of the fun for me visually. Does anyone else agree or know what I'm talking about? And then to end off this episode, I wanted to update you on 4 fun, or maybe not so fun, I want your opinion, fashion collaborations that just broke. One is Christopher Kane for self-portrait. Christopher Kane, he's so talented. I saw him last at the Erdem show, and his own brand has gone defunct. You know, at one point he had, like, Kering was a minority investor, Kering, who owns Gucci, in the Christopher Kane brand. But I love to see his work back. Self-portrait is one of those brands that is quite beloved. I loved how the Christopher Kane collab, even though it was still in like the pastels that we associate with self-portrait, just injected it with a bit more verve. And you'll see there's like these frou-frou details, but then there's also these unconventional cutouts and quite inspired use of tulle and trimming. So check that out. Oh, and bodycon too. Like Christopher Kane, that was how he really made a splash onto the scene and helped propel that whole aesthetic that obviously Hervé Leger helped originally popularize, and Versace, of course, too, and Alaya, the bodycon bandage dress. And they brought that back, but in a different way. So check that out. Another one too is Devin Lee Carlson with like Lover and Lemons, I think it is. I don't know. Why is Devin Lee Carlson the face of absolutely everything these days? I think she's supposed to be Gen Z, like your Alexa Chung, but I don't see it. I don't more like a kitchen sink approach. Like she's just sort of throwing things together haphazardly. I don't think there's as much of a rhyme or reason to it. And I just don't find it particularly inspiring, but I think it's meant to appeal to younger people, and it seems to, but she's the face of absolutely everything these days. Also, Montclair and Willow Smith came out with a collab. I think that I would consider this more of like her modeling the pieces. I don't know why everything has to be positioned as a collab, but it is. And you can see she made these very like bulbous boots and jackets. And then Patou, which is on Onitsuka Tiger. They used that influencer who's with Phineas, Olivia Suliski, as their face. The campaign shots were nice. I loved the sort of riff on a ballet sneaker that Onitsuka Tiger does. Onitsuka Tiger is owned by Asics, or Ashiks, as they say in Japanese. Patou is owned by LVMH. I just wish that they had used like a Japanese model or influencer or personality or talent in the campaign in addition to Claudia, or instead of. I just think that would have felt more aligned, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to see if there's any last questions before I have to bounce, but I'm so grateful for all of these thus far. What's coming in the future of textile designs? Thoughts on biotech materials and the resurgence of uncombed wool. I love an uncombed wool. An uncombed wool doesn't always love me. I think that part of the reason why shearling has been really popular and sheepskin is because it's a byproduct oftentimes of the food industry. And also it's a lot more hypoallergenic and it doesn't itch even against bare skin the way that wool can. I'm looking forward to the future of textile design being that mushroom leathers, because if you've ever seen or experienced mushroom leathers, they can be really, really beautiful. The price point of them is so high. It's kind of like when computers first came out, they, were priced at a place that only like super wealthy people were able to purchase them. I hope that mushroom leathers will come down so that more brands can start to incorporate them, because I'm still seeing like a lot of polyurethane at like PU, as it's often referred to, on the market. And my goodness, I can't with fake leather. I really can't. That's why we need mushroom leather, because I realize not everyone wants to wear real leather or can always afford real leather. I'm wearing these leather pants right now that I often wear when I travel. These are Banana Republic actually, but they're so soft. They almost feel silky. They're so soft. And they're real leather, and there's just nothing like real leather. I find it very temperate too. Like real leather will keep you warm, but it also, when it's not a skin tight style, will let you breathe as well. I think I'm going to bounce now, but thank you everyone so much for jumping in with all of your questions and comments. And I hope that you found this valuable, these updates in the world of fashion, and that I thank you so much. And I will see you next week. That wraps your NEWSFASH. I'm Mosha Lundström Halbert. Stick with me here and over on TikTok to stay up to date on all things fashion. If you have any questions or guest suggestions or feedback, please drop us a line at mosha@newsfashmedia.com.